All right, today we're doing something really cool. We are cracking open the private letters of a young Warren Buffett. We're going back to 1966 to dig into the core logic that made him a total legend, way before anyone really knew his name.
Okay, let's just jump right in with the number that started it all. 47.2%. That was the Buffett Partnership's overall gain in 1965. I mean, that's an absolutely mind-blowing number. But a number like that doesn't mean much on its own, right? You got to see it in context.
And to put that into perspective, he didn't just beat the market. He completely annihilated it. The Dow Jones, which is a really solid benchmark, had a great year. It was up 14.2%. But Buffett's performance over the Dow was the best he'd ever had in his partnership's history. So, of course, the big question is, how in the world did he pull that off?
All right, first things first, let's just be clear about how insane this performance really was. Because you see, Buffett wasn't just competing against some abstract index. No, he was going head-to-head with the smartest people on Wall Street, and he really wanted his partners to get that beating the Dow is no easy feat.
So check this out. These were the big dogs of the day, the biggest investment funds managing billions of dollars. And what happened? Most of them barely beat the Dow, and a few of them even lost to it. As Buffett himself put it, all this highly paid talent had a batting average that was a shade below that of the Dow. Meanwhile, his own results, even after taking his cut, weren't just in a different league, they were on a different planet.
So you're probably thinking, this wasn't just a lucky year, right? And you would be absolutely correct. This kind of outperformance didn't come from a roll of the dice. It came from a super disciplined strategy, a playbook that he broke down into 4 distinct kinds of investments.
Okay, his first play was something he called General's Private Owner. The idea here is so simple but so brilliant. He bought stocks on the public market, but he analyzed them as if he were buying the entire company. He understood that owning the whole pizza place is worth way more than the market price for just one slice.
Next up were workouts. Now, these were special situations, things like mergers or liquidations, where the profit was tied to a very specific event. What's so smart about this is that it basically took the crazy up and down mood of the stock market completely out of the equation. His success depended on the deal going through, not on what the Dow did that day.
The third category is probably what most of us think of when we hear value investing. He called it generals, relatively undervalued. This was all about finding good companies that were just, on sale, mispriced by the market. Even he said this approach was a bit more ethereal, but it was a huge part of his game plan.
And last but not least, his most hands-on approach, controls. This is where he wasn't just a passive investor. This is where he got in the driver's seat, bought enough of a company to actually take control, and then he could directly unlock its value. And this leads us to maybe the most famous case study in investing history.
Berkshire Hathaway. Yep, that one. This is just a perfect example of his logic. In 1965, he took control of this struggling textile company. Now get this, he started buying shares at around $7.60. By the time he took over, the company had nearly $19 a share just in working capital. That's basically cash. It's like buying a wallet for $7 and finding $19 inside. It's a total no-brainer.
And I love how he described it. He didn't see Berkshire as some exciting, high-flying cream puff stock. To him, it was oatmeal. I wasn't sexy, it wasn't glamorous, but man, was it a deeply undervalued, rock-solid foundation for his whole portfolio.
Okay, so those are the 4 plays in his book. But the real secret sauce, the thing that truly set him apart, was how he placed his bets. And this, my friends, is where he just completely shattered one of the most sacred rules in all of finance. Every finance textbook, every professor, they all scream the same thing at you. Diversify, spread your risk, don't put all your eggs in one basket. But Buffett, he looked at all that and asked a totally different question. To him, owning 100 different stocks was just illogical. How could you possibly know all those companies inside and out to have a real edge? He had this great name for it. He called it the Noah School of Investing. You're just loading 2 of every animal onto your ark without any real conviction. He even used this awesome, kind of cheeky quote from a showman named Billy Rose to really drive the point home. Basically, if you want to really know something or someone, you need to focus. You can't just spread your attention thin and expect great results. And the proof, as they say, is in the pudding. That incredible 47% return in 1965, it didn't come from 100 small bets that did okay. Nope. He said it himself, loud and clear. That massive performance was the result of just 5 investment situations. And here's the kicker. He actually established a new ground rule that year, telling his partners that he might invest up to 40% of the partnership's entire net worth into a single idea. 40%. Think about the level of conviction you need to have to do that. This wasn't about hoping you're right. It's about doing so much homework that you know the odds are overwhelmingly in your favor.
So how could he have that kind of radical focus? Well, it all comes down to the final, crucial piece of his philosophy, which is all about mastering market psychology by fundamentally changing his relationship with it.
Look, he was crystal clear with his partners. He was not in the business of market forecasting. He literally wrote, "I never have an opinion on what the market will do." He saw all that stuff as basically Wall Street astrology. His job wasn't to guess the future. His job was to value a business. If he got that part right, he was convinced the timing would eventually take care of itself.
And this right here is maybe the most important lesson of all. For Buffett, a stock price isn't a report card on your decision. It's just a price quote from your often irrational business partner, who he called Mr. Market. Some days, Mr. Market is euphoric and wants to buy your shares for way too much. Other days, he's depressed and offers to sell you his shares for pennies on the dollar. You can ignore him, or you can take advantage of him. The price is there to serve you, not to instruct you.
So as we wrap this up, we're left with a really big question for today, aren't we? Buffett's entire strategy was built on intense focus and deliberately tuning out the crowd. But we live in a world of nonstop information, 24/7 market chatter, and a million so-called experts screaming at you. So is that kind of focus harder than ever to achieve, or is it maybe more vital than ever? Something to think about. Thanks for joining us.